But no, I'm from Killeen originally, born and raised. My father did 3 tours in Vietnam,
Wow.
was a retired service member, U.S. Army, proud infantryman. And he retired here. And then my mother was a teacher for Killeen ISD for over 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah, she was one of the first African American teachers at Harker Heights Elementary School in Harker Heights. And she taught with KISD for over 40 years. So this is home. This is truly home for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, in terms of, so you're from Killeen.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What got you involved in politics?
Let's go back.
We want to go
So
further back.
we're
Okay.
gonna have to go way back. No, so growing up, my parents, I always tell people it's an interesting story, when you think about how we grow up and how we raised and how those foundations are kind of laid for us.
Yes.
So when thinking about my parents, they were born at the end of the Great Depression. They were teenagers at the height of the civil rights movement in the South. And then my dad, of course, being military, my mom being an educator, and they've traveled around. So they were very much in tune with the world around us. And so, of course, especially my dad, I would have to give him the props for really having me focus in this lane. Always talked about how everything intersected and how we really needed to pay attention to the things around us, the things that could affect our lives,
Right.
and how important it was to always be aware, but then also be aware that sometimes there's people that cannot speak up for themselves, that sometimes
Right.
need folks to act as a voice for them, and just to be in tune. And wherever you're called to go, you go, right? So whatever that calling is, that you listen and you fall into it and fall in line and help where you can help in this journey called life. So
Yes,
it
ma'am.
starts then. So as a kid, growing up, listening to my uncle and my dad at the table, having their very, very, very passionate debates about politics and life in general. As a kid, I just remember watching them, and I remember the first time I was actually able to sit at the table and interject my thoughts as a teenager into their conversation about what's happening in the real world. So it started early on for me. And there were a couple of scenarios where I remember asking, I was always very inquisitive, right? Always inquisitive. And so I remember saying, I watched something on the news with my dad, and I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Like, how did they get there? How did this happen? How were they able to protest a funeral? Like, I didn't understand certain things. And when he was explaining to me, it piqued my curiosity.
Okay.
And so fast forward, I started advocating against domestic violence, human trafficking. Once your eyes are exposed to certain things, you cannot look away. Well, I can't. Some people can, but I could not. And so human trafficking started it. My daughter was, again, with me at that time watching the news, and she wanted to know why there was still slavery in America. And they were talking about human trafficking at that time. And so when I started looking into it and to better explain it to her, because even my understanding back then was very limited, I could not believe that we were, like, at that time, number 3, as the state of Texas was number 3 as it related to human trafficking and how close it was to our backyard,
Right.
And so that was eye-opening. And so I was like, well, I'm only one person. But then I found a series of advocates here locally who were working diligently to raise awareness and things like that. So I plugged in. And so from there, it's just been, I've been moving forward. So my care about politics is very deep. It's very much in line with understanding the human condition, and then making sure that whatever we're putting in is going to have a positive impact. And so, to your statement earlier, I always about my my active listening. I always tell folks it's very important that we do that, especially nowadays. You see that so many people are quick to jump in and judge based on their own personal beliefs or their own tunnel vision or narrow bias, when in our world is not a world that you can broad stroke things in.
Right.
You really shouldn't do that. And to be able to understand your perspective, I always tell people I don't have to walk a mile in your shoes to know that your feet hurt.
Right.
But I do have to hear your story. I have to understand why I alone may not be able to fix it. I might know somebody who can.
Right.
I might have a connection who can, or I might know where to refer you to someone who can. And so that's part of our process. It's part of my thought process, is to make sure that, yes, that I'm listening actively, but that I'm also evaluating things that are being told to me with care, because they are so interconnected one to another. And so how can you resolve an issue if you only hear part of it? How could I possibly resolve an issue if I'm only coming from my own perspective and not you as the person who's brought the issue to me?
Correct.
Right? So active listening is crucial. But in this world that we live in today, it's also very important that we not broad stroke things with a big brush, that we take each component, break it down, and figure out how we can make it better. Not perfect, but make it better.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that was an excellent answer. I kind of got involved in politics the same
Right.
way. My parents, I was adopted. So my
Okay.
parents were, my great aunt and uncle adopted me, and they were from the Great Depression, but Mississippi.
Okay.
And we moved to Michigan. And they they always had us voting because their parents, when they attempted to vote, were denied at the voting
Okay.
poll. And so they
Wow.
said, we'll never let this happen again. So even as a little, probably like 3, the first time I remember they would take me voting with them, and I'd be in the poll while they,
Right.
do
Oh
the.
yeah.
This is back when you had to pull the thing
The
down,
levers. Yeah.
the levers, and from there I always knew I was going to vote.
Mhm.
And the only time I missed voting was when I was in the Army and they wouldn't let us vote in
Wow.
basic training when Barack Obama won.
Okay.
So I always stood.
Wow.
I always try to vote because I remember those who came before us as well.
As we should. And voting is always a celebration, always a big deal, right? And so since I was a kid, like my family was like that too. We made a big deal. It was everybody went together
Yes.
to the poll to vote. The family, we always did. And then for me personally, I always try to at least register, or I'm not a DVR, but I try to get somebody at least registered to vote, at least one person, and then we always take somebody new to the poll. That's always been my goal. So I'm very happy. There's a young lady that spoke at my event last night, and she is 60 something. I'm not going to tell them your age, but she's 60 something, and she's very vocal about the fact that she really didn't, she was not involved, right? And that she got registered to vote after several conversations and tagging along with me at different events, and she felt impassioned enough to finally put her stake in the claim and get herself registered. So you're never too young, and you have within the requirements by law, let's put it out there, but you're never too young and you're never too old to get started. And so she did that. And so I've got another young lady last night who's committed to vote. She's never voted in her life, and she's 40 something. And so she's gotten registered. And so it's exciting to be able to let people know and share that kind of energy with them, because I think people nowadays are starting to see, we always used to hear, I'm not political. I don't want to get involved in politics. I tell you what, the conversations I've had about that is everything that we do in this world involves some level of political action in some capacity, whether you're talking about rent rates, rent controls, or you're talking about medical and health, you're talking about social services. I mean, just about everything we touch today involves some level. So, so that people don't get overwhelmed, though, I always say just start where you are. So the young lady that I mentioned about the other night that's getting registered, for her, it was because she's got a young daughter who is experiencing some challenges with some of the situation. I don't want to put her information out there too much, but anyways, she was able to see that her vote today will affect her daughter tomorrow.
Yes.
And so she's made a commitment to protect her daughter tomorrow, today. I was just, yeah.
You know what I think? I'm really proud of the children who are protesting ICE. Regardless of how you feel about it, our children are more engaged in politics at this point than their parents are, because our voter apathy is so low. So when children get involved, it makes the parents get more involved as well.
Yeah.
So the young can really push things forward as well, because they don't have a voice at the polls.
Yeah. So since you touched on that, I just, in the position that we're in, somebody had reached out because there were some concerns as a concerned citizen. I had to explain to them as city council, there's a lot of misunderstanding about what we can do as council members and what we can't do. And so unfortunately, a situation when it comes to that, there's not a whole lot that we can do outside of making sure, for me personally, is to make sure that my citizens know what resources are out there, right? Or that the groups that can help people in whatever capacity understand what resources are available. And that's my intent, regardless of your opinion of whatever. It has nothing to do with that. It's just that people, whatever side of the aisle you're on, what resources are available. And so I had a constituent call, and she was very upset about a situation that took place. And I started to inquire, and I found out that there's really not a lot of information being put out for people. And so I say that there are some groups that are locally working on putting out resource information so that people know their rights, or they know what their options are, or how to report something if they feel that that's what they need to do. And so resource information as a council member is very important, so that our citizens know where to go to get that. I cannot help in that situation, but there are people that can.
There's a question where the education board starts and where city council starts, and where is there a gray area? because I know you get a lot of, I'm pretty sure you get a lot of calls about things that fall under the purview of the school education board.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And we get a lot of calls that fall under a lot of different purviews that are not ours. And so a large part of and that's why another thing we have to know these resources, because we end up having to refer people out
Right.
to get the accurate information. And so school board, we are not responsible for them at all. However, we do serve the same constituents, right? They have our children, we serve the parents, and they have them both. They get about 41% of our budget. And so our tax dollars go into them, obviously.
Right.
And so we do have an overlap there. But my hope, and I've said this before, my hope and my intention is to just to make sure that we have a good bridge, though, with all the organizations in our community that work together to serve the same people, that we're actually working together to serve the same people.
Right.
Like, so I've been saying this since the beginning, that some of these, and I'm not speaking about KSD specifically, but I'm just saying in general, our organizations tend to work in silos, right? Everybody's kind of doing their own thing, but sometimes they could, instead of duplicating efforts, really focus, and we could do so much more and start expediting some of the things that we need to get done here in our city if we could just work together. And so that's been my biggest push, and that's my biggest hope, is that in that case especially, that we're working together, serving the same community.
So what are some things you would like to work together, and who would you like to work with to work for the constituents?
There's so many things. So right now, and they are, because some things are not, everything's not always public when the wheels are moving behind. I always tell people, just because you don't see it happening right away doesn't mean it's not happening, right? So there are conversations, but I would love for our philanthropic organizations, our church organizations, to not just central denominations, but all of them to get together and have a council here, to be able to work together. So when we start talking about situations of homelessness, for example, right, or we're dealing with our unhoused and such, there's questions constantly about where the government is responsible, where it overlaps, what we're not responsible for, what we can and can't do, and that there is a huge need for community involvement as it relates to that situation. I think we're all aware that nationwide it's only getting more complicated for people, more expensive for people, and it's becoming more challenging for a lot of people. And there's also people that they've made their decision on their own to remain unhoused or in those certain circumstances. So understanding that big dynamic, I just think it's important that our organizations that have that mission and vision work together to help resolve this issue alongside the city, alongside the organizations that can actually help them make a difference. So that's one of many.
The unhoused. Because in the business district, and having the unhoused, that can be conflicting for the business owners. A lot of consumers may not feel as comfortable, but you also have to be compassionate because these are human beings as well.
That's right.
So that's something that I hope that we can all work together in every aspect to kind of figure out something good for everyone.
Right, and we're having those conversations. Our community development director is doing a wonderful job working with community members to bridge the gaps. We've got several, and I'm going to tell you, I call them my community calls to action, and we've had several people that have stepped up that said, well, here's how I can help. There's, for example, Armor of God Ministries, Liberty Christian Center, for example. This is not all inclusive list, but those are ones that right off the top of my head. If you put out a call to action, those folks are going to show up, and they're going to show up, and not only show up, they're going to show up and show out. So, for example, and I always like to give credit where credit is due.
Absolutely.
So there was a food drive that was happening. And while we were doing the food drive, we understood that there were some people in some of our senior communities that didn't have transportation, that couldn't get out, that couldn't get to the food banks. And there wasn't enough people at that particular one that were picking up for other people like they sometimes do.
Right.
So a call was made to Pastor Gilchrist at Liberty Christian, and he sent over a van immediately. And those folks immediately took those boxes and delivered them all across the city of Killeen.
Wow.
They didn't ask for anything. They didn't say, oh, well, there was no complaint. They just got out, and he sent work church members over. They did it. They delivered them, got everything done in that day. And then we got to take care of our seniors in the process.
Oh, that's great.
So those are boots on the ground for real. Armor of God Ministries, for example, it's Mr. J.T. Hahn. Wonderful person. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. Please know that, okay? And I thank every single person who is actively involved and engaged and who has answered the call. There's many of you. But for example, he too has put his services out there to try to. There's been an issue, to your point, about the downtown businesses, for example, and the fact that the shelters have to release at certain times of day. There's not a lot of things for them, the unhoused, to do during the day. There's things that need to, provisions that need to be put in place for them to be able to get, whether it's job training or any type of resiliency training or anything that's going to help them be able to get some sort of education or things like that. So he is working on a facility downtown, right, to be able to provide that service.
Okay.
We've got a gentleman that's got a facility that builds beds for children that's in process of coming downtown as well to help offset this for our people. So there are community led folks that have jumped in, that answer the call, that are actually doing the work right now, boots on the ground. And my hope is that collectively we can all see that there's enough for everyone. There are plenty of great organizations out there that are doing tremendous work, but it will take our village to make it better. So, I mean, I can't say that enough, Ashley. It will truly take our village. And what keeps me going and what really excites me is that now I can see it.
Okay.
You know, we talked about people like you, for example. I was asking what the difference was between people online and like certain people that ask questions versus accusations. And I really appreciate you as a private citizen, even doing this, right?
Yeah.
We don't have the opportunity often to have a platform that's not a self-serving platform, right? Where we can actually just be candid and have these conversations.
Right.
And there are sometimes not many people that will actually be willing to sit down and just say, hey, I've got questions. Will you come and answer them? My answer is always going to be yes, let's talk about it, because I don't always have the answer. You might have some new insight for me that I need. So yes, ma'am, let's do it. But I appreciate your inquisitiveness and giving us the platform to do this, because it doesn't happen very often.
I appreciate y'all being so willing.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I did it is because I'm actively involved, but some people know me in the capacity as a DJ, some know me on the tax board.
Sure.
But I just felt like if you have the resources, I could just DJ all day, but what's value in that?
Right.
Like, communicating with our constituents is important, but a lot of times we don't get to hear your perspective.
That's right.
And so we see you with the mayor, we see you with other council members, but it's like, what do you particularly think? For instance, a great question for you is, what's your greatest accomplishment as a councilwoman?
Ooh, there are a lot. I'm going to tell you right now, because I came in and I hit the ground running. So it was there are a lot. First of all, being able to carry over some legacy projects that my predecessor had in place was extremely important. Meaning, there were.
Wait, before you go further, who was your predecessor?
Ms. Shirley Fleming.
Okay.
Okay. So there were projects that she had in place that she had lobbied for, whether it was road construction project, Gilmer, Rancier, revitalization of that particular area. So being able to get on council and then help finish those projects or get those projects back on track was extremely important. The concept of revitalization of the downtown, that was a priority that was set for me by my constituencies, right? Part of the priorities. Understanding that while it might not come back as this major, vibrant business realm, or it had to be reimagined. And so having to scale up very quickly was a task that I took on immediately. And again, it was not reinventing the wheel. It was looking at other areas that were successful and then putting those systems in place. Now, I was able to get the support of my council members at that time. I was able to get the support of the city staff and several other organizations, create the position for Miss Kate, who you guys know as Downtown Kate, creating that position. We knew how important it was to have that in order to do what we needed to do.
And
downtown.
What does Kate do?
So she's the Downtown Revitalization Director.
Okay.
So I had to lobby with, at the time, it was Mr. Revelle, to help make sure that was a position that we understood was needed as a solid link to ensure that development didn't just fall by the wayside. Right, we didn't want it. We wanted to make sure that we weren't doing the same thing the same way as had been done in the past.
Absolutely.
And expect a different outcome. We had to do it differently, and so she was a key component to that, and she's been wonderful to help us. So I'm very proud of the revitalization efforts that have started, and the Merchants Association and things like that are now taking place downtown, and the growth of it. I'm very, very proud of that. Utilizing our ARPA funds. So we had a rare opportunity for the government funds, for the ARPA funds, to do something different with those, right? And so one of the
Yes.
things I wanted to make sure was that we showed our citizens that we had skin in the game, that we were also equally as concerned about reinvesting into our community. And this provided us the opportunity to do so. So creating these grant programs for small business, for youth organizations, again, we had the support of the council to be able to do that. We were all in support of that. And so through our city staff, we were able to create these grant programs to give new businesses opportunities to have access to funds to be able to expand their businesses. And so that was a huge, opportunity I was very, very proud to be a part of, as well as funding for Meals on Wheels, which is a great program. My father volunteered with Meals on Wheels until he couldn't anymore. And so now knowing that, there's some questions about what was going on with that one, but now knowing that they're going into our new senior housing development is on W.S. Young that's coming up right next to Destiny World Outreach. It's going to be housed in there. They're going to have a state-of-the-art kitchen. So not only are they going to be amongst the seniors there in that location, but they're also going to be centrally located with the new capacities they need, new services systems that they need to be able to serve our community much better. So I'm so proud of that as well. And then we start talking about housing, and we start talking about affordable housing for our seniors. There's more to come. Lots of work to be done, but we've done a great job expanding our TERS, which is our tax reinvestment zone. Our industrial park, expanding that so that we can offer more commercial, especially in District 1, so that we can become a key player as far as our tax dollars helping to support and lift up the city of Killeen, putting those systems in place. I'm very proud of that as well. So there's a lot. Our parks for the kids, some of them had not been touched in decades, and some of them were not safe or just not nice and very hot because they didn't have the tarps over them. So allocating those funds and fixing the Long Branch Park pool, where I spent my time as a child, to be able to see that kind of touched up and rehabbed and all the great stuff they've got there now. The list can go on and on. There's a lot of great things that I've been able to accomplish as a district member with the help of my colleagues and on council, but also with the help of my constituents, and not only in District 1, but in District 1 as well. So
how far does District 1 go, like geographically speaking?
So if you just think simply, okay, we're from parts of Veterans Memorial, parts of W.S. Roy Reynolds, I'm sorry. If you think of the left side where the golf course is and that housing area, that is part of District 1, all the way down to Fort Hood Street. So all the way up to Roy Reynolds. So Fort Hood Street, Roy Reynolds, you kind of think of that as the overall corridor.
All right, so that's
it's a very big and very blended kind of district, right? We've got some of the challenges that we face on the downtown, area and the surrounding areas. And then I've got the areas by the golf course, and then those other areas that new development, new construction. So there's a lot going on in District 1 that we have to cover. It
really is. So because you've accomplished so much, why do you want to run for Justice of the Peace?
So I have been lucky enough to have the support of my constituents for 3 consecutive terms. So that's as much as we can do on council. So the other option would be to step down and to run for something else, or to just become a community activist again in our community in another way. The JP option opened up, and for me, when I started looking at how my skill sets could match what that position needs at this time, what I feel that position needs at this time, it was almost a no-brainer, right? And so again, my whole stance since the very beginning is about building bridges, connecting dots, providing resources, and ensuring that we have cohesive communication across our community. And so in this case, that position needs some of that, right? It's the people's court, right? And so I feel that it's a good transition right now for me. I feel that I've been able to be fair and balanced. People have seen me definitely as an active listener. We talked about that, right? And it's very important that even though when people are coming to the court, it's very scary, especially if that's their first time there, that they understand the process clearly and concisely, so that even when there's a judgment or a ruling, whether they liked it or not, that they can at least walk away and say, I was treated fairly. Is extremely important. And so I feel that I can definitely offer that to our constituencies in the People's Court.
Do you have a background as an attorney or as in legal?
Yeah, so no, actually for this position, a lot of people don't know that you don't have to have a law degree for this. This position was designed back in 1312, basically as an assist to the courts to help out with the lower level type of challenges that we're entering into the court. So you're talking about things like traffic citations and small claims litigations and
Okay.
some other things, but not all bad. In some cases, you get to do weddings and things like that. But to handle those smaller things throughout the court, so a law degree is not required for this position. It's a lot of administrative work. Now, where my skill sets overlap here, for example, are okay. So I've got years in real estate, right? So and as part of that, especially in property management, I had to be on the opposite side dealing with representing my owners in court for evictions and things like that. Well, a large part of their responsibility is handling and processing evictions. So having experience with law contracts and dealing with that world, I'm very familiar with, and that's a large bulk of their responsibility. Of course, the county puts you through an intensive training. There's lots of opportunities there, but there's other things that we can do to educate ourselves that I've been definitely reading up on. When it comes to court processes and procedures, just like with any other job, you have to learn terminology and things like that. But it's not so far-fetched from what I'm doing today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why not run for mayor?
I've been
Because a lot of city council members like to
yeah.
run for mayor, go back to city council, then run for mayor again, then run for city council.
Okay.
You're taking a different approach.
I am, and just because I feel like I'm being led in that direction, and that was my personal calling. I will listen to where I feel that I need to go based on my skill set and my ability to serve. The mayorship is a very important position. I did not feel called to go in that direction at this time. So why not mayor? Just because I feel like there's a need here in this court that I can fill, and that's where I need to be to use my skill set to fill it. But the mayorship is an important position, and I'm not saying I won't do it one day.
Right. Opportunity may present itself.
I might come back and do that one day. No. But it just wasn't it's just not in my alignment right now. And so I don't fault anyone for wanting it becomes I can't speak to anyone else's motivation, right? So I don't know why certain people, I'm sure some of them have said why they're doing what they're doing, but it's tricky, right? So sometimes, for example, like you think about our terms are 2 years. Right now, we're going to be working on that, but 2 years. So the first year that you get in there, you've campaigned, you got in there, and you're having to fast track, learn, and jump in and go because the wheels are still moving.
Right.
So once you learn, and you're looking at, for me, it was like, say, shards of glass everywhere, right? You had to pick them up and figure out what went where and try to put the puzzle pieces together very, very quickly while dealing with the day-to-day on top of everything else that was happening. So it's a very trying process when you're trying to learn in the beginning. So that first year, you're really getting your feet wet, trying to understand everything, processes, how it works, what can I do, what I can't do. And then the second year, you're starting to find your rhythm, you're starting to get in that space. And then guess what? It's time to campaign again.
It's time to run again.
And it's like, man, we want to just be able to focus on doing these projects and getting these things done and completing what we started. And so it just feels like sometimes, I was always one of these term limits, but I understand it from that perspective. If you have projects in place, why you would want to keep going, because you don't want to leave them to fall by the wayside, because then somebody that might come behind you might not care to keep it going. They might cut it, mix it, And so I can understand why somebody would want to continue to finish what they started. Or on the flip side, different people have different skill sets that they might be able to bring to the table to help our community out. And so maybe they feel that they've learned those things in the time that they've been on council and now can offer them up as mayor. I don't want to speak for anyone else, but I'm just saying I can understand, and whatever their decision is their decision, right?
To me, it doesn't make sense. I'm going to tell you why. I'll give you a jiu-jitsu analogy. Once you get your skills for white belt, and it's time to go to blue belt, then you go to purple belt, then you go to brown, then you go to black. But when you get black belt, you're in charge of people, and you're typically the professor or the teacher. At some point, you got to evolve past your white and blue belt. You got to go to purple and brown. Then eventually you become that black belt. So there's another thing they say, we like to go up in the military. You teach people 2 steps down, but your goal is never to get demoted. It's to always go up. So it almost seems like they're going up to go down, to go up, to go down.
But in the way we're structured, that's your only option, right? So if you want to continue your community service, if you want to stay involved, and again, for whatever reason, finish those projects, or
Okay.
you've reached a place where you now have alignment of resources that you feel that you can bring to the table, those are the only two places that you can really, or three places that you can really go as council, and unless you become part of the city staff or something like that. But in that at that level, we're
So
in
you're
our
talking about in
setup,
Killeen?
at our level,
Okay.
where else can you go, right? Unless they decide to run for a congressional seat or a state seat or something like that, which is also a possibility. But if it's not in their cards, it's not in their cards, right? I don't know. I just don't believe in telling people what they should or shouldn't do. I think the
Exactly.
people will ultimately decide. And to your point, whether it makes sense to you or not, I challenge everyone to do what Miss Ashley's doing and go ask them why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, because
Get
I
your
am.
own clarity. Yeah, do it. No, for real, do it. Do it. Ask them and get your own clarity, and then that way you can make an informed decision versus just one that's assuming something nefarious when it might not be. They might have a valid reason that you can get with or not, and if you don't, that's fine too. But at least you've done your due diligence, right?
Yeah. And for y'all watching, let me know how you feel about that, or if you have any questions for other city council members, let us know, because we can always follow up.
Yeah.
Especially, if you win, when you win, how you win, then we'll want to know, what we can do to help.
Thank you.
Especially as constituents.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that as well, because one of the things I've always said as well was, don't elect us and leave us there, right? It's very important to have the support of the community, because obviously you voted us in for a reason, but then to know that there's a lot of things that we cannot do alone. Like we have to have your support, we have to have your backing, and then sometimes we have to have your feedback, even if it's something that we don't want to hear, right? And then be open to accept that. So don't elect us and leave us. If you put your people, in place that you voted for, stand by them and then figure out how you can support them. I could not have done the work that I've done and the work that I continue to do without a lot of key people, and you know who you are, and I'm very thankful. But I call them the boots on the ground. They are the boots on the ground, and I could not have done it without them. So it really takes, again, our village in every respect.
And now that we're talking boots on the ground, what's going on with our streets? Watercress. What's that, Bunny Trail?
Yeah, go back. So I encourage everyone to please go back and watch our council meetings. But also, if you're not signed up for Code Red alerts, or go into our city page and follow up with the updates for roads, please. It's all there, and they provide all those updates on the roadways and the road construction. So some of them are almost done. Some of them are actually completed. Some of them had different delays for different reasons. For example, you mentioned Watercrest. We're responsible for, I always call it the trust but verify. You're military, so trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
And so right now, there's a lot of extreme caution, especially when we're watching the road construction process. And so one of the things that they mentioned during our council meeting was on that particular roadway was that when they went out to check, they being the city, when we checked, we found that there were some discrepancies in whatever was being developed, that they had to kind of stop that process and say, hey, let's go back and revisit it. So that caused some delays, but it's a good delay, because you don't want them, you would never have wanted them to just say, and just go ahead and push it through, because then we'd be back at square one.
You're talking about the roads being inefficient?
Right, or failing for whatever reason, or because they didn't have the right compound or whatever. So when the city was testing, they caught some discrepancies that they were able to note in the moment before that road was fixed. And so they were able to stop the process. Let's go back, revisit it, figure out how we can fix it, and then they had to start again. So I'm thankful for those delays. Those are good delays, because they're protecting us for the long term. There's a lot of roads that we've never done full replacements on, so it seems like it's a long time and seems like it's a very arduous process, which it is. But I just want them to do it right.
Yeah, do it right.
Just do it right.
Because we're gonna have to repay for it if we don't.
That's right. That's right. So that's where we are. And again, but the constituents can follow along on the city's website.
The city website?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what about decriminalization? That's a big deal with the marijuana. Are you getting sued or something? Who's suing us? I voted yes.
So for the record, we cannot decriminalize, or we're not legalizing anything at that point. There was a body of constituents that brought forth a request for basically low-level.
It was me.
Were you one of the citizens?
Yeah, I was a citizen.
There was a lot that brought forward that particular initiative, and so basically asking the police to reprioritize the focus and not focus so on low-level offenses of of marijuana. And so we voted no. We said, let's turn it over to the people, the citizens, and let them vote and see how they wanted to move forward with it. We were obligated by certain rules and restrictions to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
so we let our citizens decide how they wanted to proceed. And the citizens said basically that they don't want you to process or, low level offensives of marijuana. And so, interesting thing to me in the situation was this battle was not mine. However, as a result of it, I have learned so much
Oh yeah.
about this industry, and how it's helped our veterans and things like that. But anyways, I say all that to say, you asked who's suing us. Let me refocus here. So, needless to say, when this happened, there were people that were against, the fact that the constituents wanted us to put this in place. And so then Ken Paxton and some others decided to sue, saying that as a home rule city that we could not make this determination to
And who is
um,
Ken?
Ken Paxton, Attorney
Yeah.
General.
Okay, just want to let people know.
Yeah, and so there's this is a very complex situation, and so I'm not at liberty to speak in total of it because we
Yes,
are
ma'am.
under. But what I would encourage people to do is just to research the
Mm-hmm.
situation, to follow along with the situation, but also I've been asked multiple times why I allowed it to go to the ballot, and so this is something that. Was very important because some cities pulled it, right? So some cities said, even though I've got this petition that's been legally filed according to the laws that are written, even though the petition was done and submitted to the cities, those signatures were there. They did it the right way. It's not your fault that there was a loophole for you to file a petition such as this, which has now been closed. But at that time, you were able to do that. I could not silence your vote. I could not silence your petition. I would not be able to sleep at night knowing that I ripped away someone's right to speak
Sure.
to their government, which is
Right.
how laws get changed, whether you like them or not, right? That's your right to petition. And so the rules were followed. They were confirmed at the time, the way
Mm-hmm.
our charter, the way everything was written, like it or not, the rules were followed. And so we turned it over to the people and allowed them to vote. And that was, to me, the right thing to do,
Sure, I agree.
win, lose, or draw, because it's the people. And like I said, that's how laws are made. That's how laws are changed. That's how laws are challenged to say it's time to update and modify them. And so we firmly felt that the courts should decide. And whatever the courts decide, ultimately, obviously, we're going to follow. And so I could not be prouder that the process is working right now. And that's really all I can say as it relates to that.
And what I would like to also add is 70% of people voted for. So we're talking about Republican, Democrat, Independent, Purple, people who never voted before. And it was very discouraging for those who did vote for the first time to feel as if their vote did not matter. And that's one of the reasons we have apathy.
So yes, it's very dangerous ground. Okay, so for example,
Mm-hmm.
if you rip away this petition process, or you rip away
Mm-hmm.
somebody's vote, and again, 70% is a huge portion. If you rip away, again, whether you like the initiative or not,
Correct.
that's not my determination.
Correct.
That's not for me to decide. But the idea of ripping away somebody's vote is very dangerous territory to be on, especially in today's the culture that we're living in today. That is our entitlement as citizens to be able to cast our vote, to be able to express our concerns and have our grievances addressed and whatever else with that as it relates to that. So for a legislator to just be able to wipe it away,
Mm-hmm.
everyone, especially our people that are proponents of Constitution, should have been up in arms about that. Win,
Right.
lose, or draw, whether you like it or not,
Right.
everybody's, I feel personally, the position should have been let the courts decide. Win, lose, or draw, let the courts decide.
And it's a republic. Like our entire um, governmental process
Mm-hmm.
is a republic. That's why you have the position you have. You represent the group of people. And when you go into the why it started, the genesis of it was because farmers and those couldn't always go to the polls. So now we have a republic. You go, especially at the federal level, we'll go to DC, you take your card, I represent this amount of people. And so we still have that same type of ideology to this day. And when people are engaged, when people are involved and they make a decision, I personally believe, I'm more of a constitutionalist, that it should be followed. I don't have to agree with it. Um, And for all of us, it's very rare in today's political climate with the MAGA versus the ICE versus all these different things for all of us to agree. 70% is like, I don't even know if I've ever seen that before.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Um, we
And
should take it serious.
it should, yeah, all of it should be taken seriously. To
Yeah.
your point, which is a very valid point. Also, as a legislator, it's extremely important that we remember that some of these battles that get brought to us, or some of the battles that we have to fight on behalf of our constituents, are not our own.
Right.
So Jessica might have a different view personally than what my constituents are bringing forward, or what my constituents are choosing for me to lobby and fight for
Right.
on behalf of them, on behalf of the city. And so I have to be able to separate the two and understand that I should not, and it's happening every day, unfortunately, but I should not be legislating from a personal space, that I should be lobbying in what's in the best interest
Right.
of our city and our constituents overall, as it relates to, you can't please all people all the time, but overall, I should be focused on the constituency and what's in the best interest of my city, not my personal preference as it relates to whatever issue is brought before me. And so that's where that active listening piece comes in, and kind of ties back into earlier conversation as to why we have to look at all of the pieces of the puzzle. And while some things that are brought before us, we might not agree, but when you're looking at the big picture, the bottom line is, was it done appropriately? Is it legal? Right. Did they meet the standards? I can't choose what type of business you want to open in some cases, but as long as you've met the certain parameters, that's all I have to go off of. Okay. So it's those kind of things that I hope that people keep in mind as well, especially if you're running for office, just understanding that this is not personal. It should never be personal. It really should be about the process, the people, and making sure that we're in line with the rules as they're laid out.
And the rules, were you a participant in the no-knock warrants no longer being legal in the city?
So that was before me. That was right before me. So Ms. Shirley Fleming was in support of that, and they've done it. They advocated very hard for that particular to remove those. So no, that was council before me.
That was council before you. Okay. And then in terms of businesses, a lot of small business don't feel as if Colleen supports small business. Do you have any initiatives that you would like to do that can maybe help them feel like they're being heard?
Yes. So I would highly encourage our business constituency to join together into the Merchants Association, right? Because when you have again, out of the silos, join the group of people that are in that same industry that can maximize their voice. Right?
I thought that was only for downtown.
So there's Downtown Merchants Association, but they are welcoming, and my understanding, Ms. Candice, you corrected me if I'm wrong there, but if it is for just downtown, but I think that they're expanding that.
Oh, I had no idea.
I don't know. So let's find out. Ms. Candice, if you're watching, please check on that, because if not, I'm sure there might be another organization. We'll figure that out, and that's another thing we'll look into. But But anyways, they should be working together to maximize their voice. It's similar to what the Merchants Association is doing. So that way, when there are issues and challenges, that they can be brought together as a team and then brought forward as a conglomerate, because the more we know, the more support they have, the more likely they are to have a more positive result. Right? And just remember that they're not out there alone. So sometimes I hear the rumblings, or I'll go talk to a business owner, and it's like, well, are you involved here or there or there? And the answer is no. Well, it's like, okay, join your local chambers, whichever. We've got the Hispanic Chamber, we've got Innovation Black Chamber of Commerce, we got the Colleen Chamber of Commerce. Those entities also are essential to helping lobby for businesses, right? They do a very good job of saying, these are some of the challenges, or these are some of the things that we need. And there's support out there for small businesses. So just a reminder, plug in and connect.
What about so we have the chambers, but the EDC, Economic Development, are you guys involved with the oversight of that?
Yes. So we have some responsibility as it relates. We're on the board, so certain council members, there's two, and the mayor that are on that board of economic development. And so they do have insight and input that they can provide to the EDC as far as direction or projects or things that we'd like to see, they do have those meetings regularly. So yes, ma'am, that's part of our process. The Economic Development Corporation works hand in hand with us because they're also responsible for bringing in those industries. That's their mission, right? To help us with our
You know what
development.
I'm going to ask next.
Well, so I'm not sure what you're going to ask next. I can only
Yes, you
imagine.
do.
I can only imagine. But what they're ask your questions. I'll tell you what they're doing now.
So, meaning there's an economic development where you have oversight. Why are there so many car washes here?
I am going to tell you transparently, like I've told many, many people, we live in a capitalistic society. Okay, let's just go there first, right? And
Yes,
so
ma'am.
this is capitalism. That's our rule there. If you do not want them, do not use them. I'm not saying do not use them, but it's supply and demand. Okay, so that's with any industry, supply and demand. If you go buy them, you'll see how busy they are. If you don't like them, then please just stop using them. I'm not encouraging people to stop using them. I'm not trying to deflate anyone's business, but that's the simplest answer I can give you.
Supply
and demand, right? So these industries that come in, whether they're restaurants, or there's certain types of restaurants that you have lined up down the road, and you're like, why are there so many burger joints right next to each other? Well, that's because people are eating them.
Okay.
Let's just be honest, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the answer. It's supply and demand. That's how this all works. So if you're not happy with it, then let your voice be heard. Stop using them. That's the simplest answer I can.
My Facebook family said they're not happy with it.
And I hear this a lot, but I don't have an answer, for that. It's supply and demand.
Okay.
This is the capitalism model, and people aren't going to invest their hard-earned dollars. They're not going to invest their dream money or their dream time, their family stakes into an industry or business, ideally, that's going to fail, right? So you have to think about that. You have to think about how much market research has been done in this area that says, okay, yeah, we can still have 5 more and people are still going to use them.
Okay.
This is really what it boils down to at the end of the day. So when people are looking at that, I understand their frustrations, but it's supply and demand.
What can we do, or the economic development do, to bring bigger, better industries, maybe IT, things that are growing? I would love to see an Apple store. I would like to see industrial parks that look, that align with Austin and Dallas and all these other cities, because our taxes are about the same rate. Why can't we have some of those type of things here?
It's also a question I get very often. So it's a very complex question, but I'm going to try to see if I can simplify this.
Don't simplify it. Make
it plain. Let me just make it plain. Okay. So there are certain things that we need as far as when we're talking about warehousing and things like that, as far as land, logistics, where we are located sometimes does not match with what these organizations need. Luckily, we have the rail ties that some of these organizations are able to tie in and use the railway. But a lot of our issues or challenges boil down to location, logistics, and how difficult it is. We're not seated right on the highway. Us changing over to 14 was a tremendous help because it opened up some other doors for us. But logistically, that was a nightmare for us. As far as having enough land available was also a major challenge for a lot of warehousing and manufacturing. While we have some space in our industrial park, we had to expand it, right? Which we have done. Thank you to TERS and thank you to EEC. We've expanded that area. So now that on the backside on Roy Reynolds, we've got some other areas for expansion for commercial development now, which is also going to be coming in. So we've got that. So we had to look at ways we can create opportunities for ourselves. So we're thankful to the people that donated land, for example, off 195, where they're working on our industrial or research park, right? So we had to work on that. That's about 100 acres that's coming over there. So when I tell you citizens are working with our economic development, I'm very proud when I always hear the community that's getting involved. So they've got the land that they are working with that family on getting that built up for us. So we've got a research industrial park coming out that way as well, which will also put us in line with access to 35, which will help you ideally, like to your point of bringing in some of those agencies that need more space, but then need direct access to 35.
Understood.
So that's now going to help us. So thank you to the folks that worked on that deal to get that done, because that's going to be a huge contribution to us and to the types of businesses and research companies that we can get here. One of the things I've said since the beginning as well was, okay, fine, if we've missed the mark on the larger corporations or the larger organizations, start talking about Samsung and things like that, well, there are still tons of subsidiaries and services that they use that they
Okay.
need that we can get here, whether it's training facilities or the IT components, technology. There's so many other things that we can do and bring here, which is also an area of focus. They are also focusing on emerging markets, right, which is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, there have been companies. Again, we don't see all these things, so it doesn't mean that they're not happening if you don't see it. But again, people don't know. We don't have a chance to talk on platforms like this. So there was a delegation from the American Chamber of Commerce, Jordan, that came down here that was exploring different sites for manufacturing solar panels for commercial buildings for HVAC units. You know, whether it pans out or not, I don't know, because those things kind of happen over time. They're looking at development of training programs for electronic vehicles to service them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of logistics companies that are looking at relocating here. That's transportation and logistics. So there's a gentleman who manufactures for Mill. He's got a government contract out of, I believe they're in New York area. We met them at AUSA that's interested in coming down to our area for manufacturing of these particular materials that the government needs for some of their defense products.
Okay.
And so there are a lot of conversations like that happening right now.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they don't happen overnight. They don't just pop up and rise up. And so each one is a great opportunity that we have to explore. And I'm telling you, they're really doing a good job about that. The only thing I'd say that we don't do a good job of is really explaining what's here and how it's really benefiting us. And so it's something that they've been working on as far as their messaging, getting their websites up to date so that when people come and they look and they say, what's really going on in Killeen, people can actually see it. So for example, we've got Dongjin Semichem. A lot of people aren't familiar about this agency, but it's been around since 1967 in Korea. They are a huge component subsidiary with Samsung.
Okay.
They
Yeah,
do
yeah.
the semiconductor washes, right? Their first headquarters in the entire United States, the first one, is right here in Killeen.
Oh, wow.
It's right there in our research park. It's in our industrial, our park. And so a lot of people don't even know it's there, but they're creating job opportunities, but they're also creating other areas for other businesses to want to come and see. Why did they choose Killeen? Why did they choose to locate their first one ever in the United States here in this city, in this town? And so they're also helping us sell our town, sell our location. And so it takes those types of relationships. And unfortunately, we have fallen behind the curb, unfortunately, for a lot of reasons, right, historically.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are playing catch up in a lot of respects. And so, like I said, these things don't happen overnight, but we are building bridges. And so when people talk about, like, why does the city council go to these different, why are they traveling and they're going to these places? And some people say, oh, it's vacation. It's really not. This is networking. And it's important to do so, because when we're at these events, that's how we're able to find these people, to be able to say, hey, come look at our town. We can champion our city, and nobody can sell it like us, right?
Right.
And so you're asking why. Well, let me go and get in front of this room of people, and I can tell them why they should be in the city of Killeen. I can tell them why we have the most trained and ready and able workforce, thanks to our United States military, our amazing service members, and how that would benefit them from having those types of folks in their backyard as a ready workforce right here. We have so many positive attributes for the city of Killeen. And so that's what we do when we go to these places. That's how I was able to find the gentleman that's coming down from the New York area to do the go see about the development here. He's working with these. That's how these things happen. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very, very, very proud of it. And I will get in any room and promote and champion my city. One of the things that, we always have to say is that people are looking at our town, though, as well. They're looking at other factors, though. They're looking at not only just saying, build a warehouse and let's get an industry there. They're looking at the quality of life.
Right.
They are looking for these things.
Yeah.
What type of entertainment do you have? Because if I'm bringing my employees there and their families, what does the school system look like? What are the rankings of the school system? What are what are they close to the highways and things like that? What other activities and quality of life are there for my employees? What's cost of living there on average? They are looking at all of those components. Is this company business friendly? Right? Are we open for business? And so I think that we are now getting to a space where we're collectively, and I say collectively meaning each of our entities that are responsible, county, city, economic development, the city, the the council, we're focused on those things, and I hope that we continue to focus a little bit harder
Okay.
on them, because we should really be having high level conversations about how to move our city forward in order to do what you're talking about, getting these businesses here. We have to start presenting ourselves, and you hear me say it all on council. If you watch those meetings, we're not chopped liver. Like, we deserve more. Being where we're ranked on the county side as we're
Number
15, right?
Number 15 largest
And
county in
the
Texas.
state where we're ranked, there is no reason that we should not be a key player in Texas's economy.
I agree.
That's what I see for my city. That's what I see for our town. And when we start to conduct ourselves that way, and we start getting some of these smart people who are good at research and everything else, to stop infighting, but let's figure out how we can move our ball forward collectively and fight together to get our city on the map, and start letting these people know that we should be a key player and economic driver, because we can, because we have the ready and able, willing workforce. We will get so much more done. But that has been my fight. That's my personal fight as it relates to the city of Killeen. And so I'm with you. And it's exciting because there's a lot of good stuff going on right now. Again, you might not see it just yet. We've got 2 major developments that have been approved for District 1, which are going to bring some more housing, gated communities, some more affordable housing that's coming into the area. We are still did not campaign on grocery store, despite popular belief, but obviously living on that side of town, understand the challenges since 2019 that we've been facing. And so my promise, though, was to leave no stone unturned, right? And so even to this day, I want to share this because it's good news. I just got it when I was waiting for you to set up. And so even right now, there's some citizens that are working on identifying land location. They've identified a development, and they've got 2 potential grocers that are interested in doing a go see here. So I am ecstatic. Again, all things said, we want them to be able to come here and have a good representation of our city, and know that we are ready to move forward, with showing them whatever they need to see, and promoting our city, and showing them that there is a need here, and that we ultimately, hopefully, will be able to sustain it.
So you're talking about how there's a food desert on your side of town. Well, that's your that is. So and unfortunately, we could not have a grocery store at that same location based on contractual obligation, right?
Oh, you're talking about the HEB location?
Yeah,
that's correct.
So a lot of people have been complaining, when are we getting a grocery store? There's a food desert.
Yes.
So now we're working on it, and it's a real solution coming.
So let me just, because this is another thing that even came up at a town hall that I was just at, right?
Yes.
So again, I had an opportunity then to explain it, but just to kind of go back, because this is a very complex, again, another complex situation.
Yes.
If the city could build a grocery store or wave a magic wand and have one, please trust to believe we would have done that already. We are not in the business of building grocery stores. We cannot do that. However, when we talk about being open for business and friendly to businesses, we can work with our Economic Development Corporation to make sure that we've got incentives available and things to help make a package enticing to someone who would want to bring said business to this area. We do have that control. And so it started, again, back in 2019. This is not something that's new. However, we are all familiar with the situation with HEB. Very thankful to the gentleman and his brother who bought that building, thinking that they were going to help us expedite location. They found out in their contracts that there was a provision that they could not have grocery there, unfortunately. Well, then the land that most people were focused on at the time is the corner of 38th and Rancier. That land is privately owned. So by being privately owned, they had several contract negotiations and things that were done prior to me coming on council. And then when I came on, there were conversations being had about that land and potential development of it. But at the end of the day, if that private owner decides that that deal is not good enough for them, then that's the private owner's decision. We can't force them to put a grocery on that land and make it work, right? We can't force them. So if they've chosen that they were going to wait for another deal or whatever their case may be, then that's their decision.
Sure.
So that's unfortunate, but that's the reality.
That's the reality.
So then when I first got on council, and again, I'm very thankful to my other colleagues, we started walking land. We said, okay, what does the city own? Where's land that we have control over that maybe we can use as leverage to say, hey, Mr. Grocer, Mr. Developer, that we have access to this so that we can still accomplish our goals and then get our grocery. We have access to the land. And from there, we started researching and identifying land that the city had control over. And so we did several go sees. Now I 1,000% need to give credit, and I always give credit to the Innovation Chamber of Commerce, Black Chamber of Commerce,
Okay.
because they jumped in. Mr. Russell said, "How can we help?" And so we all met one day at some of the land, and we all went out. And we're like, "Okay, here are the swaths of land that we've got. Let's see if there's anybody out there in the community, the world, wherever, that would be interested in coming here and looking at our land." Well, they were able to identify several prospects that came and did go sees here, several.
Okay.
One of them got very close, which was Oasis Fresh Food Marts, right?
Okay.
Now, logistically, we started uncovering issues and challenges when they really started delving in. They did feasibility studies, they did market studies, they did town halls, and had conversations with community members about their grocery store. And we found out there were some logistical challenges that were relevant. Like, so most grocery stores want to be located on a corner lot. There's, again, import, export, getting in and out of an area. Then there became storage that was a challenge. If they were a smaller company, they needed to be able to have that direct access to the highway. Getting their trucks in and out, was also
Right.
a challenge. So finding a location that was suitable for that in that particular area, it became a challenge, right? Even with the land that we were able to identify. Then you have to think in, we had COVID. And so then we had supply chain
Issues.
breakups, right? And challenges. And then inflation and parts went up and labor, construction costs went up. And so all of a sudden now you start having an economic conversation about the return on their investment was not sufficient. It didn't make sense on the dollar side for them to come build new construction and start a project. And so that's when I came on council. I was like, okay, well, let's focus on boutique grocers. That's a smaller grocer. That's somebody that's like 15 to 25,000 square feet, because they'd have more likely an opportunity to provide a service here and be okay. And so with the help of innovation, we had several people come in and out, and unfortunately they could not make those numbers work on that side. However, we kept pushing. We kept exploring other options. I had several companies come down here and go see. So that's we've done. We even changed up and said, okay, well, we know that maybe we can't just do a standalone grocery store.
Right.
So if we build a grocery store with retail mix use on the bottom and then housing, that would be maybe a more appealing type of setup. We put out requests for production, had very few responses there. I don't think we had any actually at the first time that we did it. We opened it up again, but we've got people now that are still exploring the option. But the problem that we're running into is the return on the investments for the grocers. Their expansion challenges that they have with cost of doing business right now is very difficult. But there are people that are looking at other models to see if there's maybe something else that we can do here that might work. So I will say it's not for not trying. It's not for people not wanting to be able to service us, but we do have other stores in that area who have picked up that cross and bear it for us. But we do need a more affordable option that's access for our constituency.
What about the city manager? Have they put any incentives for maybe a grocery store?
So the Economic Development Corporation, they have incentives, right? There are different types of incentives that an EDC can use, whether you're talking about tax abatements and things like that.
Right.
So all of those things would be negotiated and bundled into a package. The thing is that we don't have grocers knocking down our door to get here. And then the ones that we do reach out to and say, hey, come and look, the numbers don't make sense for them to invest in here. So whether we're talking about it's a challenge where we need to increase rooftops in our area to be able to support that was part of the challenges for them, was having enough people to utilize the services. But it's really that grocer's ability to do business. We can't make them do it. We have to find one that can actually afford to do business in that type of environment in today's economy. And there are people out there. We have not touched everybody. So that still tells me that there's a chance.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's being incentivized and making sure that's available, the knowledge of that.
Oh yeah.
I think that would help a lot because I haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
And I think that would be great.
Yeah. So when they're reaching out to businesses, or businesses happen to reach out to us, it's definitely shared.
Okay.
This is an initiative I can confidently say. Typically, I will not speak for other people or other entities, but I can confidently say that they are really focused on helping us. And if there's an opportunity to get a grocery on that side of town, they are willing to help. And so,
Okay.
because there's been a complete push to try to explore every single option from each entity that's been involved. So I feel confident that everybody's been working diligently. It's just a matter of finding the right provider. And
And
that's the hard part.
this hasn't been communicated to the population here.
Mm-hmm.
So to us, it looks as if nothing has been done. And so I'm glad we're having this conversation where you say, no, we have been putting the
A lot
effort
of
out.
wheels. Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that the Innovation Chamber is helping as well.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And again, it's platforms like yours that are going to help as well. But for constituency now, sometimes you don't want to have to watch all of our meetings because they can be really long, but please go and search those topics on our
Okay.
website because that information is there. So
Okay.
there are briefings from the Chamber of Commerce. There have been briefings from the Innovation Black Chamber of Commerce
Okay.
on this very topic. I have held several town halls as it relates to this topic. And the Killeen Daily Herald has also put out timeline and tracked this very closely and put out updates. So there's a lot of information out there. But it's one of those things, Ashley, if people are not like you and you want to go and find it, if you have a question, you have to go search for it sometimes.
Mhm.
But it is out there. It is
Okay.
out there, and people are updating as best we can, with what we've got.
Okay. Economic development is a great thing to be involved with. Now that you're going to be maneuvering to the Justice of Peace role, you have opponent. Well, it's three of you guys running, three women running. Why are you the best candidate?
Thank you. I think that I'm the best candidate because I've got the community experience. I've got the know-how. I am fair. I am consistent. I am concise, and I'm clear. And so, like I said, those things are needed right now in the People's Court to be able to build a bridge across our community, understanding that this is a position that it's there's sister courts involved in this, and while each court is independent of each one of those, there's still an effort that needs to happen where relationships are made in each of those courts because there is a level of overlap. So, and then also for educational purposes and things like that. So being able to build a bridge across the county is extremely important. I feel confident that I could do so as well. Also, being able to lobby for some changes that they need in those courts. There's some tools that one or two people cannot fight on their own for, meaning to make the courts more efficient, upgrading technology and things like that. So having the support of someone else who understands that and having the ability to reach out and offer that, I feel that I'm confident and capable that I could help bring those things to the table. And then also working with our constituency to know that I'll be fair.
Okay.
I'll be fair.
And then an argument against someone coming into a new position is we already have someone who's done the training and they're already engaged in this position. Why would we vote for you over that individual, which is Judge Nicola James?
Right. So I will just tell everyone to just do your due diligence to explore what the position does, what each court is responsible for. And as you start to look at metrics and numbers and things along those lines, you'll be able to come to your own conclusion there. Our styles are probably very different, and so that's makes no difference there. But for me personally, I see a need within that court to expand it, to make it more efficient, to make it better for the people, and to provide the people a better court experience. I feel confident that I could do that, and I can expedite that for them.
Do you have a good relationship with Judge Greg?
With our judges across our county, I would say yes.
Okay.
I don't know him personally, like on a one-on-one, directly, but yes, because he's directly involved with our constituency. Right. Absolutely. And again, those types of just knowing our justices, knowing our commissioners, oh my gosh, it's very important. And that's the kind of bridges I'm talking about, because each one of these people play such a key role in our communities, our counties process and future development. So it is important that everyone have a good working relationship, and ultimately that we're on the same page as how we view our city, how we view our county, and how we're going to move ourselves forward. What direction are we going in? And ideally, it should be the same one.